The device you are using right now is running software that was designed to control what you can and cannot do. Here is what they never told you about the operating system you trust every single day. Starting with the one that runs on more machines than anything else on Earth and has been quietly frustrating people since 1985. Windows. Windows did not become the world's dominant operating system by being the best. It became dominant by being everywhere. Microsoft released Windows 1.0 in 1985 as a basic graphical layer sitting on top of MS-DOS. It looked primitive. It ran slowly. Nobody was particularly impressed. But over the following 4 decades, it evolved through versions that defined entire generations of computing. Windows 95 changed how people thought about personal computers. Windows XP became so reliable that hospitals and governments ran it for years past its official end of life. Windows 7 remains to this day the benchmark that most Microsoft releases get measured against. Windows 11 is what you get now. The genuine strength of Windows is its flexibility. It runs on virtually any hardware combination you can assemble. Gaming rigs, corporate workstations, budget laptops, industrial machines. If it has a processor and enough memory, Windows will probably run on it. That universality is why roughly 3/4 of all personal computers on Earth use it. The dark side is what that dominance costs you. Because Windows runs on everything, it is also the primary target for every virus, every piece of ransomware, and every malware campaign written in the last 40 years. The attack surface is enormous and always has been. Then there are the updates, mandatory, frequent, and timed with remarkable precision to interrupt whatever you are doing at the worst possible moment. Older or budget hardware slows noticeably under the weight of newer Windows versions. And somewhere in the history of every Windows user is a blue screen that appeared without warning and took unsaved work with it. That problem, remarkably, has existed since Windows 1.0, the operating system Apple built by refusing to let anyone else touch it, and why that decision made it both the smoothest and the most expensive system on this list. Mac OS. Apple launched Mac OS in 2001 and made a deliberate choice that defined everything about it. They would control the hardware it ran on completely. No other manufacturer. No budget versions, no exceptions. Every Mac runs software and hardware designed by the same company at the same time for the same purpose. The result is an operating system that simply works in a way Windows cannot consistently guarantee, because Windows has to accommodate thousands of different hardware configurations simultaneously. Mac OS crashes less. Updates arrive without the chaos that Windows users accept as routine. Battery life on MacBooks consistently outperforms equivalent Windows laptops. For video editors, photographers, music producers, and designers, the combination of Final Cut Pro, Logic Pro, and GarageBand, alongside the stability of the underlying system, created a loyal professional user base that competitors have spent decades trying to pull away without much success. The Apple ecosystem integration is its own category of advantage. An iPhone, an iPad, a MacBook, and an Apple Watch all share data, calls, messages, and files seamlessly without configuration. You start something on one device and pick it up on another without thinking about it. The cost of all this control is literal cost. You cannot run macOS on anything except Apple hardware. Apple hardware is expensive. There is no budget entry point. Gaming is a persistent weakness because macOS lacks DirectX support and the dedicated GPU options available in the Windows ecosystem. And some professional software either does not exist on Mac or ships in a reduced version. You are buying into a premium system on Apple's terms, or you are not buying in at all. The operating system running on billions of devices that most people have never knowingly used once in their lives. Linux. In 1991, a Finnish software engineering student named Linus Torvalds built a free open-source alternative to the expensive operating systems available at the time and released it publicly. He called it Linux. He could not have predicted what it would become. Linux is not a single operating system. It is a foundation that anyone can take, modify, and rebuild into something new. The resulting family of versions called distributions or distros now numbers in the hundreds. Ubuntu and Fedora serve regular desktop users. Debian and CentOS power professional servers. Kali Linux is the standard toolkit for cybersecurity professionals worldwide. Here is the part most people never realize. Google runs on Linux servers. Facebook runs on Linux servers. NASA's systems run on Linux. Android, the mobile operating system on billions of phones globally, is built on a Linux foundation. The Raspberry Pi runs Linux. Smart home devices run Linux. The Internet as a functioning infrastructure depends on Linux in ways that are nearly impossible to overstate. Linux is lightweight, fast, secure, and runs comfortably on hardware that Windows would render nearly unusable. It costs nothing. It can be modified by anyone with the knowledge to do so. For programming, cybersecurity, data science, and server management, it is the industry-standard tool. The honest weakness is the learning curve. Many Linux distributions rely on command-line interfaces rather than graphical menus. Mainstream applications and games are built for Windows or Mac OS first and Linux second or never. For technical users, it is the most powerful option on this list. For everyone else, it requires a commitment to learning that most people are not willing to make. The operating system Google built for people who live entirely inside a browser. Cheap, fast, and almost useless the moment your internet goes down. Chrome OS. Google released Chrome OS in 2011 with a genuinely different philosophy from every other operating system on this list. Instead of running software installed on your device, Chrome OS runs almost everything through the internet. The local machine does very little. Google's servers do most of the work. The result is an operating system that boots in seconds, updates automatically in the background without interrupting anything, and is nearly immune to the malware problems that plague Windows because there is almost nothing stored locally to attack. Chromebooks, the hardware Chrome OS ships on, are deliberately affordable. Schools adopted them in enormous numbers because they are cheap, they break without catastrophic data loss, and they require almost no maintenance or IT support. For students, casual web users, and anyone whose computing life happens inside a browser, Chrome OS delivers everything needed at a fraction of the cost of Windows or Mac hardware. The Google Play Store integration means Chromebooks can run Android apps, which significantly expanded what the platform can do beyond basic browsing. But the fundamental limitation is built into the design. Without a stable internet connection, Chrome OS loses most of its functionality. Full versions of professional software like Adobe Photoshop do not run on it. Heavy multitasking is genuinely limited. Gaming requires a cloud gaming service like GeForce Now, which itself requires fast internet to be playable. Chrome OS is an excellent tool for a specific kind of user and a frustrating dead end for everyone outside that category. Now the two systems that between them run on almost every smartphone on the planet. And they could not be more different in what they allow you to do. Android versus iOS. Android is Google's open-source mobile operating system, and it runs on more devices than any other mobile platform on Earth. Samsung, Xiaomi, OnePlus, and dozens of other manufacturers all ship Android phones at every price point from entry-level to flagship. The core advantage is freedom. Android lets users change themes, install third-party launchers, customize the interface in ways that no other major mobile operating system permits. The Google Play Store offers millions of applications covering every conceivable use case. Budget-conscious buyers can find capable Android hardware for a fraction of iPhone pricing. The cost of that openness is consistency. Not every Android device receives regular security updates. Older hardware becomes vulnerable and slows noticeably over time. Many manufacturers pre-install bloatware that cannot be removed. And despite Android's raw power, apps on the platform are generally less optimized than their iOS counterparts, meaning performance can feel uneven depending on the device. iOS does the opposite of everything Android does. Apple controls the hardware. Apple controls the software. Apple controls what gets into the App Store. That total control produces an operating system that is stable, secure, and receives software updates for years after purchase. Even older iPhones continue receiving new iOS versions long after comparable Android devices have been abandoned by their manufacturers. Developers consistently prioritize iOS for new app releases because the user base spends more and the platform is more consistent to build for. The restrictions are real and deliberate. Customization is limited by design. Installing apps from outside the App Store is heavily restricted. File transfers without Apple's own ecosystem are unnecessarily complicated. Storage cannot be expanded. The headphone jack is gone. iPhones are expensive, and Apple cycles through design changes slowly. You are trading freedom for polish and paying a premium for the privilege. Two operating systems most people have never heard of that quietly run some of the most critical infrastructure on the planet. Unix, AND, BSD. Unix was developed at Bell Labs by AT&T in the late 1960s, and it quietly became the foundation that most of modern computing was built on. Linux descended from Unix philosophy. Mac OS is built on a Unix core. The principles of multi-user multitasking computing that Unix established in the 1960s still govern how servers operate today. Unix itself runs in banking systems, scientific research environments, and meteorological infrastructure, including the systems the National Weather Service uses to process the data behind weather forecasting. It is not consumer software. A full Unix deployment costs approximately $1,447 per user license, meaning a company with 250 employees is looking at over $350,000 for the operating system alone. BSD, Berkeley Software Distribution, emerged from the University of California, Berkeley in the 1970s as a Unix derivative built for technical users, servers, networking, and embedded systems. The PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 both run BSD-derived operating systems. Netflix's content delivery network runs on BSD. Enterprise firewalls like pfSense and OPNsense are BSD-based. FreeBSD, OpenBSD, and NetBSD each serve different corners of the professional technical world with a focus on stability, security, and efficient handling of heavy workloads that consumer operating systems were never designed to manage. 8 operating systems. 8 completely different answers to the same question of how a computer should work and who should be in control of it. The one you are using right now was built with specific priorities that benefit someone. Knowing what those priorities are puts you back in control. Drop a comment below telling us which operating system you use and whether you would ever switch. Subscribe because the technology running your life is worth understanding completely.